Hello, it's your friend and
Hello.
mine, voiceover man. I was just saying I'm going to put a
Voiceover
voiceover over that music for next week, like a welcome to the Hot Pulse Studios podcast, your weekly source for tech news and stuff and things. Here we go, introducing your hosts, that guy and this guy.
Yeah,
Hello.
Silver Black. Oh no, wait.
Yeah, Silla Black. Yeah.
Adam Steele from Newcastle.
Wait, what?
Why not?
And why not, indeed. How are you all, everybody? I hope you're all well. Welcome to the Hot Pole Podcast, your weekly tech news and guitar news and stuff podcast. Music tech news specifically. Hope you're all doing well. We've got some very interesting stuff this week. But first, I'm going to crack open a Guinness. Because they've got this weird widget in. And you have to do it in a very specific pour to get
You know what's weird?
What's that?
Well, weirder than widgets. Right. This top is like red. It's red. It's not even. But my camera is picking it up as orange.
Yeah, cameras
So I
don't
tried
do
changing
very well.
I changed the hue, but then when I changed the hue, this which behind me is actually quite bright yellow, has now gone slightly orange.
Huh.
And if I make this go to fully red, then that becomes completely orange. So it's like literally not capturing some of the red, like quite a lot of it as well.
Bizarre.
Yeah, fascinating. That looks like a proper pint, that.
This is not a sponsorship for Guinness, by the way. This is just, that's what it looks like as a Guinness settles. Widgets are alright, actually. There's nothing quite like a fully poured pint from a real tap, but in lieu of that, this will do nicely. You may be able to tell as well, I'm on a super wide angled lens. Just for a change. You can see everything. So yeah, that's a new thing this week, but that's going to be in the live room on one of the cameras when we go back to doing live streaming from the studio. So that's why I got that lens. For podcasting, I usually use this lens, which is a much more reasonable 14 to 42 mil. But that one's an 8 mil on Micro Four Third, and it's just fisheye city. But it means you can see all the things, including a distinct lack of gear at the back. There's rack units missing, there's guitars missing, pedals missing. It's all at the studio. That thing, the bass library we've been talking about, we're actually doing it now. Dun, dun, dun.
You mean boom?
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
Boom.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, it was the most excruciating thing. Me and Chris were in this week. And yeah, we spent 3 hours getting the tones right. And then you sit there and you go, dong.
And I was really like, it came down. I was like, oh, how are you guys getting on? Like, we're maybe almost ready to start recording soon. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Came back down again. It's like, we recorded like 2 things. And then like, next time I came down, Chris was gone. And you were just there on your own. Just like, I'm restringing this guitar for the 3rd time.
Yep. We were in at 10 a.m. We were ready to start recording at 2 p.m. And I left at midnight. And that was just for fingerstyle. That wasn't even for pick style, which is going to take a whole another day.
Yeah, we were taking the dogs out, and Ash was like, "What on earth is that noise?" I was like, "That's Adam recording a virtual instrument."
the most mind-numbing thing possible.
Like, I know, like, in terms of someone be like, "Oh, I'm living next to a recording studio. That's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be like bands playing all the time. It's going to be like, I'm going to hear like heavy metal. I don't like heavy metal." No, the reality is the 2 sounds you hear from the studio are boom and woo.
Very fruity individuals in the studio. No, that's from the IR sweeps. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just so funny because the amount of like weird technical stuff we're doing in the studio, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, because a lot of the stuff we do isn't what your average studio does. Yeah, it does end up with some really odd sounds coming out of there, for sure. But yeah, it's been quite the week. I was stiff as a board yesterday because of that. Because if you can imagine playing guitar or playing bass, because it was for bass, you'll hold quite a heavy instrument for maybe 2 hours and you're moving round for most of that. The problem with what we were doing is to get samples that are really clean, you need to strike really hard or soft, depending on the sound, and then just hold it for 40 seconds, for as long as it takes for that note to die off. and you just have to hold it. You can't touch it. You can't move. You can't, you can't scratch. You can't, because you'll get bongs and noises coming through. And then you repeat it again and again and again. Took a few breaks, made sure we didn't go completely loopy, but by the end of it, oh my word. Oh, yeah. But yeah, we went all the way from the bottom of the fretboard right to the very top, and we actually put a super thick string on and went all the way down to G sharp below bottom B, which is just that note. So yeah, now that's with Chris, and he's going to spend weeks bashing his head against it and trying to make it work, and it's going to be a while probably before we actually have anything to properly announce on that, but it's happening. Yeah, now the medium fun bit has happened, now the no fun bit has to happen, and I give Chris all the credit in the world, because wow. Wow indeed. Aside from that, this happened this week. This isn't the super special announcement. This came in the post. How cool is that? Full wireless set. This is the new wireless Evolution digital set from Sennheiser. So I'm going to see how far I can go from this out to the edge of Ashton and see how far I can get with it being completely digital, so completely good quality. So that's going to be fun doing that. And also just kind of test the sound quality out of it and talk about the phone app and all the clever stuff. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting video. Yeah, good fun, good times.
Indeed. That's very interesting.
Now, at this point, we've got quite a few people tuned in. Shall we talk about the super special secret announcement?
The super special secret announcement. I don't know. Maybe we should wait until further on in the show.
If you want to hear about the super secret announcement, everybody say in chat, announcement, please. Because if you don't, then we won't.
and like, comment and like. If you comment, then you must have liked. Otherwise, you're out of here. Get out.
I've put a poll in chat saying announcement, please. I've put a poll out there.
Man, we are.
I think I have. Anyway, I pressed the buttons.
All right, you failed.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, lots of people have to say yes on announcement and type announcement, please, in the chat, and then maybe we'll say something.
And press no.
Can if you want. If everybody says no, then nobody gets the announcement.
No.
And if you do, you will rue that eventually.
Oh no. Someone else has clicked yes. And 1 in 10. I think. Oh, someone else has joined me in the news.
Someone else says no. Computer says no.
Come on, we could do it. Team no.
If you're listening to this on the MP3 version on Spotify or iTunes, I hugely apologise. It's just a massive...
At the moment, it's showing 83 yes, 17 no. But it's kind of more interested in a lot of the football matches, at least. Feels quite one-sided, but,
Oh, yeah, there's a football happening, apparently.
What happens if I switch to a different YouTube account? Can I vote on it again?
Probably.
You can vote on it again.
Now you say football. This is how interested I've been in football recently, is that I found out through reading the news on a quick break while I was recording the bass that England had won against Germany. That's also how I found out that England were playing Germany, and it's also how I found out that the Euro 2020 thing was still happening.
Oh, I'm getting closer. I've just got to make sure I don't click on any client accounts to vote on this, because I don't think that'll be better.
When did we vote on an announcement? It's community engagement, guys. Community engagement. That's a thing, apparently.
I don't think I'm going to be able to be there. Oh, no. There you go.
Woo! Lots of votes. And there's quite a lot of no's coming in.
They're all me.
Oh, right. Okay.
They are all me.
It's getting close. It's getting close. Other people are going to have to press yes.
I think we're fine.
Yeah.
I think we can
end that poll. Okay. So, announcement. Do you want to start the ball rolling on the announcement?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure where we're going with it because it's kind of like w- we hit the announcement like barrier.
What?
Well, we're at the number now.
Right. Okay. Yes. So I'll do the announcement then, shall I? If you're stalling.
Yeah. Yeah, go
All
for
right.
it.
So we just hit 50,000 subscribers, which is amazing. And thank you, everybody. It's a massive achievement. And to celebrate 50,000 subscribers, we're going to be doing a giveaway. And we're going to
Okay,
be
now it's a celebration giveaway. I like it. That's what I couldn't quite figure out. So obviously we're
yes.
going to start it when we're just underneath it. We haven't
Yeah.
got it finished yet, and then like we jumped up quite a few in like one day. Like okay.
Yeah, well, I didn't really want to do a kind of a let's get us there kind of thing because it always feels a little bit cheesy to me. But this is like, yay, we did it, win some things.
Mhm.
So yeah, we get to shout about it to the world, let more people know that we exist. And so the giveaway is not completely finalized yet. So I think we'll be telling you all the details on next week's podcast. And so there's going to be quite a few companies giving their stuff away. We're going to give away some things that we have too. So we're going to give away a few things that that are personal to us, but also confirmed to be involved. Zilla Cabs are going to be giving away a cabinet. So that's going to be awesome, yes. And Two Notes have agreed to give away a Cab M and 10 cabinets.
Ooh.
Pretty sure Audience are involved at this point. But yes, I've talked to Audience, and as soon as they confirm Audience are in, if Audience never get back to me, I've got the ID14 Mark II that I will give away myself if they don't get back to me. But I trust that they will.
It's going to be one hell of a haul.
Yes, by the time we've finished, we've got lots of other companies that are kind of on the hook, and we'll get all that confirmed and sorted out by next week.
And as I say, what we're adding to it as well, we'll announce.
Yes.
But needless to say, this will definitely be the biggest giveaway of any sort we've even come close to by a long way.
Yes. I gave away a pedal once.
Yeah, this is going to be a bit special. So,
And the ways
I
to
mean, the
enter
thing
are going to
is,
be
though,
subscribe to the channel and tell all your friends. And I know
yeah,
that
but no
are
one's
kind of
gonna wanna tell
hardcore.
their
I've already.
friends now because they'll want it to be a smaller community, so they've got a better chance of winning.
Yeah, maybe.
So, all those
Tell people you don't know. I don't know. Tell everybody.
we don't care if any one of the people. It'd be great if someone that's been following for a long time wins it. To be honest, that's
Yeah.
kind of the whole point of it. In all honesty,
Also, hopefully
completely
it'll get some people who were watching the channel a while ago and kind of dropped off to come back and see what we're doing now and kind of reconnect with us and become part of the family again. So yeah, we're hoping that... No, it's not UK participants only, Al. No. It's international. It's certain prizes may be region locked depending on who is prepared to do what. I know that Two Notes, it's international. Zilla is probably international as well. I know they have a little headquarters in the US and of course they're UK based, so they'll be able to post wherever. And yeah, we can post to anywhere as well. If it's somewhere super remote, you might have to pay import fees, but we'll be giving away stuff and things and that. So,
I'm really excited. It's going to be really good.
Things like I've got this SC Electronics X1A microphone that's lovely and in the box. I've used it a few times, made a video about it, I think. I'll give that away.
So what you need to do, guys, now is just on the next stream, just constantly be asking him, what else could you give away? Because he's going to keep looking around going, I don't need that. I'll put that in the giveaway.
Yeah, exactly. Chris is in chat.
Studio.
Chris is taking a few minutes away from programming our new bass instrument. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. We've been backwards and forwards talking about it all day because I sent him 32 gigabytes of samples earlier today and he was like, whoa.
Whoa.
Sorry, when I say that Zilla have a US office, that's not strictly true. Zilla are UK based, but they have a specific like shipping thing with the US, and I think they have a warehouse over there, so it makes it easier for them to deal because they have a lot of US clients. They have a way that makes it affordable. That much I know. The specifics they know, and I don't, but I do know that, yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, that's probably just the easiest way to explain that. But yeah, they're doing well. I was talking to Paul from Zilla today. We've got some plans in the works.
Ooh.
There's a 6x12 guitar cab coming to our studio very soon. Which is
That's just so we've got somewhere to put the speakers, isn't it?
pretty much, yeah. Is it overkill? The best kind of kill is overkill.
So when we were tidying up the studio for the studio tour video, I think that's the bit that took the longest, was just moving all the speakers that are lying around in huge heavy boxes.
Yeah, where do these go? Where do these go?
Where's that video up to?
That is the one that needs editing. There was a weird kind of bug in Premiere where a couple of the videos that I edited didn't have any sound in at all on export.
Oh.
So, or at least they didn't have any voice. They still had the background music. It was really weird. So I've had to go back and re-render a lot of stuff, which has put me back by a day or so. But yeah, that's the next one I'm going to edit, is the studio tour. Might film a bit more B-roll to go in that one, but I'll be in the studio tomorrow, so if I do need anything, that's when I'll do it.
Sounds good.
Oh, Terry says can have my Sound on Sound collection going back to 1978. Christ.
Wow.
If I had anywhere to put that, I would absolutely have that.
See, I thought we had a lot. We've got
3 or 4 years worth of Sound on Sound downstairs somewhere, but that's
at least
a lot. Yeah, I used to religiously read it every month. Recently, I just find I'm too busy to do so. And even before, I kind of didn't keep up. I wouldn't say stopped reading it, because I still do every now and again, but when I stopped being religious about it, I'd already switched to the iPad version, because it was cheaper and I didn't have to carry big lumps of paper around. But yeah, 6x12, a giant guitar SVT. I mean, the bigger the cabinet goes, the different the sound is. I wouldn't say the bigger the sound is or the better the sound is, but people often say a 4x12 sounds better than a 2x12 because volume and because reasons. So theoretically, why wouldn't more speakers be more good? You know? So that's also, I think that's going to be quite a good video, is having 2, 4, and 6 and going, well, if bigger is better, why don't we go bigger, bigger, bigger? And see if it really is better. And if it is, I'll be very happy. And if it isn't, I'll at least have proven a point. And I'll have alternatives and I'll have flavours. Tasty flavours. So yeah, it's been a busy week. Done a lot of stuff. And I'm now very tired. So yes, shall we finally talk about the news?
Let's get to the news.
Let's get to the news. Let's go all the way over to the button to change to the news. And this is our headline article for the week. We've said Sovtek lives, which is true in a sense. Electro Harmonix have reissued the MIG-50 all-tube amp head. So the Sovtek MIG-50, there's it's slightly niche in the UK and the US, but there is a collector's market for it. They do sound really cool. Big collector that I know of is Josh Scott from JHS Pedals. But also, they're just cool, and Electro Harmonix made them under the Sovtek name, I think. But yeah, they own all the Sovtek branding, and so have decided to remake it. And they are now hand making them in the US. Similar tone to a Tweed Fender Bassman, but not the same. It sounds like a MIG-50. With normal and bright channels, bass, middle, treble, and presence, fairly normal tone stack. Slightly odd that it uses 5881 power tubes, which are a bit like 6L6s and are kind of intercompatible, but do sound slightly different when you push them really hard. It's got a modern feature here that it's got bias pots on the back, which won't change the sound compared to a vintage one, but it means that if things aren't quite right with your amp, you don't have to turn it off, unplug it, take it apart, pull it all apart. You can literally put a multimeter in those points there and turn the thing until the number's right and you're done, which is good for saving yourself a lot of time. I made a video recently about doing that with the Rev amp that's behind me here. And it took me, I did have to take the amp out for the Rev because the bias trim pot was inside. So all in all, it took me about 15 minutes. Doing this would probably take you 3.
Ooh.
It's not the kind of thing you need to do every day, but when you do need to do it, you'll be very grateful it's there. Different output taps on the speakers, 4, 8, and 16 ohms. So you find out which one's on the back of your cab and you go beep boop that one.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, there's no indication on price yet because they are made in the Electro Harmonix factory in New York. So I can't see them being super cheap because handmade in America, that's going to cost you. Mm-hmm. But if you're an Electro Harmonix and a Sovtek fan, there you go. See, there you go. Ace Man in chat's got an actual MIG-50. Loves that sound for certain things. Great sounding amp when pushed properly. Which is why I was saying those 5881s. In my experience, they don't sound any different from 6L6, which is kind of the regular power tube at normal kind of clean levels. But as soon as you start really giving it some and really start to get to that kind of upper limit, these do a thing, and it's a nice thing. And so, yeah, that's a big thing about valves tubes that a lot of people don't get, I think, is that they all kind of sound the same until you push them beyond their designated limits. Like if you get a super clean amp and then you have a different set of tubes and another super clean amp, it's not going to sound that different. But as soon as you really push it, that's when the differences come out to play. So Al's just put our Patreon in chat there, and we've got the Discord link as well. So if anyone wants to join us for conversation after the stream, the Discord is there. And if you want to support us to do more of this kind of stuff, and actually, I'm going to make up something on the spot. If you're a supporter on Patreon, one of the things in the giveaway is going to be specifically for patrons only.
Ooh.
Not sure what yet. That will be determined.
Good. Yeah, something good.
But yeah, something good will go to a patron of the channel next week. So if you're a supporter of the channel, you are in with a very good chance of winning something super cool. And I'll even sign it with a gold pen, whatever it is.
Even getting better.
Yeah.
And I'll sign a blank check. Put that in.
A blank check from Nobody Incorporated.
Yeah, I'll find a checkbook for from 10 years ago that's out of date or something.
Hobby Grade says, yeah, he's got that. It's got incredible headroom and doesn't break up till about 7 on volume, which is quite loud. Yes. Well, a properly designed valve amp is supposed to go pretty freaking loud. I mean, that was originally the whole point of high wattage amps, right? Now in modern times we use them for their kind of clean sound and their guts, and I say clean sound, I mean you can turn it up and it won't just kind of fuzz out. But back in the day they were supposed to just be used because you didn't put it through the PA system and you wanted to be heard at the back. Yeah, so that's why amps get loud, and that's why you need a properly soundproof room in a studio to get that real kind of rocking sound out of it, because you really need to turn it up to the kind of levels where you'd be able to hear it at the back of a concert to get that tone sometimes, depending on genre. Like, funnily enough, for metal, you don't really have to do that, but for rock, you do. It's weird, but there you go. Yeah, Aceman says, yeah, cranking it to 11 in a huge room is great for big solo sounds. Yeah, you put a microphone at the back of the room and say, well, it sounds huge because it is huge. Yeah. So, let's move on from that to something from our friends at Sennheiser, which this struck me as a little bit weird after our article a few weeks ago about Sennheiser not making headphones anymore. I think that when they said that, they meant their consumer division of headphones they've sold, because this news article came out. Sennheiser partners with Fisher Amps, who make seriously custom stuff, to create the FA500 custom in-ear monitors. So I'm guessing that Sennheiser still sell things like in-ear monitors to their professional industry, sort of market. And so Fisher Amps make like custom in-ear molds and specific designs and really, really clever top-of-the-range stuff. Like these in-ear monitors are custom molded, but where a lot of companies will take a pre-existing speaker and custom mold around it to fit your ear, these guys have done it the other way around and designed a headphone to be custom molded, if you understand what I mean. That it's kind of purpose designed that way. And these happily go up to 20 kilohertz, I saw in the original news article that I saw, but they also go down to 6 hertz.
Wow.
So if you want bass, they got bass. That is bass. So yeah, they also do like the typical custom colors type stuff that you can get. That's the driver from the 500 series in-ear monitors, which I have a pair of those, and they are very good indeed. I started using them before I stopped live touring, and not these, but the driver inside of the Sennheiser 500s, and they kind of upset me a little bit in a good way, because they were that accurate. I could exactly hear the sound of my own voice in my head. And that's the kind of thing that can really distract you when you're trying to play a set. And all you can hear is, God, that's what I sound like. But that's how accurate they are, that you can pick out on those details whilst performing. You know, when your mind's supposed to be in other places, and these things are so transparent and so accurate that there's nowhere to hide. The sound is just there. It did mean that actually it was much easier to get the right pitch when I was singing, because I couldn't not hear it, if you know what I mean. It was so obvious to me whether I was right or wrong that it actually made life easy, because I didn't have to fight and guess and struggle. But yeah, I had been using Shure drivers before that, and Shure drivers are great, but they are much like every other manufacturer of in-ear monitors, where they use these things called balanced armature drivers, which are the same things you find in hearing aids. And they're okay, but the way to make them more professional is they put 2 or 4 or 6 multiple of them in the headphones. So one's for like bass, one's for mids, one's for treble. And the problem with that is that as you split the different frequencies up, you end up with little gaps in the frequencies that kind of don't translate properly.
Right.
And that means that when you play in a live show, it's weird. It's hard to explain, but kind of there's a slight smearing of the sound where it's a little harder to pick it out. And then you get these things which have a single nice big fat driver in them that can do full frequency, which is really unusual for in-ear monitors. And yeah, they were so accurate, it was crazy. But the price on these custom things is a lot.
Whoa.
Yes, €1,349. Wow.
That's a lot of money.
Andre says, do they make a mold of your ear? Yes, they do. I never quite saw it through because I stopped doing live touring, but I did get my ears molded for something similar to this. And there are 2 ways they do it now, and the more modern way is they use a 3D imaging camera inside your ear. Very cool. So yeah, traditionally they would put plaster of Paris in your ear or something equivalent, let it set and then pull it out. But now they don't. They just put like a kind of 3D camera in your ear and go, well, that's the size, done.
That's weird.
Yeah, but yeah, you buy a set of these and they fit your ears perfectly, and there's about 30 dB of isolation between the outside world and these.
Wow.
which is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That reduces the outside world noise to about 6% of what it was. Just trying to do the maths off the top of my head, because 20 dB reduction is down to 10%. So yeah, 5%, 6% of the actual outside noise gets through. That's some good isolation. So yeah,
Yeah.
if you are absolutely serious about what you do in live sound, that's the kind of thing to consider.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Now, moving on from the
Moving.
ridiculously expensive to something quite cheap. TC Electronics have come up with a new version 2 of their Juno 60 chorus. And it says June 60, but it's basically a rolling Juno chorus, which is a really nice sound and a sound that I really like. It's got an upgraded stereo output on this new version. It's got a TRS jack on the output, so it can make things sound absolutely huge. It's got 2 different speeds, or you can press them both for an extra mode. And now they've added an extra switch inside it, so if you want to blast these with like synths or keys or anything really loud, it won't just distort now, it will actually accept that level and do it properly. Yeah. Just talking about the in-ears for a second, going back a second, Danny in chat says he was never impressed with the bass from the Shores, but he only had the 215s. Yeah, the 215s are the entry level, which I think have 1, maybe 2 armature drivers in, which means they couldn't cover the whole frequency range. They did a sterling job, really, for the price of them. The thing is, you can get them for £100, £90, roughly the same equivalent in euros, $120. For that price, they do really well. I used the 535s, which had, I think it was either 3 or 4 drivers in. And they covered the frequency range a lot more, which as a bass player, I kind of needed that. I needed to be able to pick out the lows. And they did a great job for me for a couple of years. And then I got the Sennheisers and I was like, whoa. Whoa, okay. Yeah, so as Danny says, the 215s only have 1 driver. Yeah, so that's it then, because only with only 1 armature driver, armature drivers can't really do full frequency spectrum stuff. They just can't, which is why they pack more of them into the higher end gear. So yeah, there you go. But yeah, this TC Electronics, €59 for one of these, so not super expensive. I've been considering on and off getting something like this for a while, but I've already got the TC Electronics Third Dimension down here, which is their rip-off. It is a rip-off of the Dimension C, which is kind of similar. It's not the same, but it's got a very similar kind of flavour. And I used that on stream on Friday for a live stream, and it sounded magnificent. So yeah, that's fine for what it is. TC Electronics stuff, it's not necessarily bad. I mean, it's not necessarily good, because now they're just a Behringer-owned company and their head designer has left. So these are just kind of iterative improvements. Excuse me, that was a proper hiccup. Ooh, that's that Guinness arguing with me. But yeah, I mean, that's not going to be a bad pedal, but compared to the version 1, that's not exactly what I would call a massive leap. That's if you didn't already own one, they're now more worth getting.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. Now, from hardware to software. This is something that interested me, and I downloaded this and played with it last night, and it's good. Brainworx have their series of BX console plugins, where they've got Neves, they've got Focusrites, they've got SSLs, they've got tons of SSLs. They've now got an API as well, and as of last night, they've now got an AMEC. This is the AMEC 9099, and this is something that we need to ask and talk to the guys at AMS Neve about. Because AMEC became AMS Neve, I believe.
Right.
This was Rupert Neve designed. And yeah, the original 1999. I didn't know this for the longest time. But yeah, so the Rupert Neve designed E1998 iDesk. So yeah, the plugin will be on sale, it says, from August 3rd. But if you use the Mixmaster bundle from Plugin Alliance or the Mega Bundle, you can get it right now. Which is how I ended up playing with it last night, because I have the Mixmaster bundle. and it's very, very nice. It's got a super clean kind of analog feel. The best way to describe it is like Neve stuff is usually the classic Neve stuff, which is quite thick and warm and kind of has that big, fluffy, vintagey vibe. And usually the other end of the stick is SSL with the kind of clean, clinical, slightly crunchy, more modern thing.
Yep.
Amec is the stuff from after Focusrite came out with... Not Focusrite. After SSL came out with a lot of that stuff. And Rupert Neve looked at that and went, I like that. I'm going to make my own spin on that. So, yeah, Amec sounds like ultra clean Neve. Which is the only way I can describe it. It's got that kind of sheen and shine that a lot of Neve stuff has, but it's not got any hissing, really. I mean, It has if you really, really, really turn it up, but compared to the classic vintage Neve, it's whisper quiet. All the things that Mr. Neve himself wanted to improve on the old stuff is all in there. Like the high and low EQs have got different buttons on. The low's got a button called glow, so you can make it have a glowy sound, whatever that means. And the top end has got a button called sheen that gives it a sheen on the sound. Yeah. And so there's a really nice gate. There's what was the thing? It was parallel. Yeah, so there's a notch mode on one of the EQs. So if you've got a very specific kind of sound on your guitars, you can exactly find it and notch it out using this analog style EQ. Fully parametric dynamic sidechain filter. That's a lot of words.
That is a lot of words.
That is a lot of words. But what it means is that if you're trying to clean up side chains for your compressor and your limiter, there's really clever ways to do it in there.
Okay.
And there's an ambience switch in the dynamics section, which I didn't have a chance to play with because I only downloaded this yesterday. And as I said earlier with the whole bass thing, I've been running around like a nutcase. So, yeah, didn't have time for that. But there you go. Yeah, they've said, can someone haul an old Amec Mozart down to Brainworx next? But yeah, these are, you can get a 14-day trial and try all these. And yeah, the one downside to the Brainworx stuff, I think, is there's too much choice sometimes. That they've got all these different consoles and it's a bit option paralysis. If you don't know exactly what it is you want, how are you going to know? It's a bit of a... But there was a really good video that I saw a little while back that gave a brief overview of the differences between a lot of them. Obviously not the Amec, because that just came out. But I watched it and I can't remember who did it now. What is consoles comparison? Let's just see if I can find it. Don't mind the noise outside. Someone's just... Alexei Soloviev. I will put this link in chat if anyone's interested, because there was a particular video from Alexei Soloviev. I know it wasn't even this, but it was something like this, but you could very much hear the difference between some of these Neve and SSL ones, and then explain the difference with the Focusrite as well, because there is a Focusrite channel strip in there, which is no relation to the company Focusrite that exists today, but Focusrite of the time was another Neve thing that was kind of in between classic Neve and Amec. So so that there's a whole history there. But Brainworx seem to be doing a fantastic job, and I'm using their stuff more and more and more recently. Because at this point in what I do, I have access to like all the Slate stuff, all the Brainworx stuff, a lot of the Wave stuff, and you do tend to stick with what you know, because I think that's part of the process. Is when I'm trying to mix, I've got two sets of mind going on. One is let's do the job, let's do using what I know to get the results, and the other one is shiny, shiny thing. And I try and throw in the shiny thing wherever possible. And with the Brainworx stuff, whenever I try it, I listen back to a mix and I go, this just feels better than anything else that I've been doing with the other versions of these similar things. And that's hard to put a finger on, but yeah, it does feel nice. So, yeah. Yeah, the Brainworx stuff is good. And yeah, I tried this last night and first impression was very good. So, yeah, if Neve made something SSL-ish, it's kind of a hybrid. So there you go. Next one. J-Rocket have made basically the Electro Harmonix Memory Man delay. Moving on. Boss have... No. I mean, there's not much more to say. The Electro Harmonix Memory Man is a great delay pedal and is very much a classic. Scott says, look, shiny plastic bag blowing in the wind. Hi, Scott. He's not wrong. That's new plugin syndrome to a certain point. But yeah, so the Clockwork Echo from J-Rocket Designs is basically a Memory Man with a bit more control, fully analog delay. Henning Pauly's done a really good review on it. It sounds great, as have quite a few other YouTubers. I have not. I mean, if I needed a delay, I would definitely buy something like this. But as it is, I have the Fernweh from Jupiter Effects up there, and that sounds wonderful. And I don't think I need anything else right now. So there you go. If I don't need anything else, unless someone throws one at me, I'm not going to go get anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got things like tap tempo, which is nice. I don't think the original had that. And they do sound wibbly wobbly. The modulation is on a separate button, which is nice because the modulation's got that thing on the delay, which when used subtly, I think can be really quite nice, but too much of it makes me feel seasick. But the fact that you've got a foot control for it means that you can have it make two different sounds at different points of the set, I guess. Don't think the original had any of that. It just had on or off. So yeah, more control is more good. But I think they're $400, something like that, which is a lot. Wow. But then, I mean, it's that sound, and it's an actual analog version of the classic Memory Man sound. So if that's what you're after and you want to take that on tour, that's probably what you're going to buy. So there you go. If you haven't seen it before, there it is. If you want it, go buy it. It looks good. Moving on.
It looks really cool.
Yeah, it's a nice finish.
Yeah, it's a very cool looking thing.
I prefer the classic Memory Man a little bit, the kind of the one in the background there, because when it gets more scuffed up, it's got more character, and I just imagine that as this gets scuffed up, it's just going to look like it's rusting. Certainly not saying this looks bad. I like the old one. I don't know why.
Nostalgia.
Yeah, maybe, but then I never owned a classic one, so I don't know. No. I always did. I don't know though, so maybe it's that kind of wannabe nostalgia. But yes, if you want to be out on the street making noise in front of no people because of the whole great situation recently, nobody's on streets anymore, get yourself a Boss Cube Street 2. So this is a tiny little amp that's got a battery in it and sounds very loud and good. Apparently they've changed it up a little bit, so it's yes, the connections are on the back instead of the top, which is a good idea if you're going to take this out live, because if it starts to rain a little bit, that means that water isn't just going to funnel down into your amp.
Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, that sounds like the kind of oversight where someone said that to them and they've gone, right. What's Scott saying now? Scott not afraid to fire some shots and speak the brutal truth. And that's why we like him. Oh, yeah, so there's a USB port so you can connect this to your computer. And so, yeah, this is a proper buskers thing because it can have a mic and a guitar go through it at the same time. The guitar channel's got 3 different acoustic amps, 1 instrument, whatever the hell that means, 4 electric guitar amps, and a mic mode. And the mic channel has volume and harmony controls. Harmony controls? What? Oh, right. Okay, well, that's very clever because I've seen a few things where like it'll take the chords from the guitar side and it'll put like vocal harmonies in tune with the guitar.
All right.
Very clever.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that, if you're a busker, that's a pretty neat trick.
Alongside a looper, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah, just a battery-powered looper in this, and you can make a pretty good show.
Oh, it's got a
actually.
looper in it.
Does it? Sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, so there's separate switches, so you can switch it all with your feet while you're playing.
Yep.
That's very cool. Okay. I mean, it looks rather rudimentary, but still, yeah. I mean, if you're serious about looping, you want one that's got at least 2 buttons so you can do clever stuff, but on and off still works. And there's this thing which is the Bluetooth MIDI adapter, or audio MIDI adapter. So it'll do you can play music from your phone, so you can sing to a backing track or that kind of thing without having to have it plugged in, and sat next to your gear, so someone can come along and just steal it. Which is
pretty cool.
Yeah. Downside is they don't bundle the Bluetooth adapter with it. That's a separate add-on, which should really be included for the price, I think. Just because it's the kind of thing... I mean, it's also screwed on, so it's not going to fall off during the performance. But, yeah. Yeah, useful, though. So, what? That's weird. So it's €349. The Roland branded version is €509. What's that about?
What?
Yeah, what's that all about? Let's have a look. So the Roland branded version, which is the... Oh, well, that's a 50-watt one. That's just bad reporting, because this is a 10-watt one.
Maybe they mentioned it earlier on in the article.
Maybe. Yeah, so the Boss one is 2 times 5 watts. And the Roland one is switchable between 10, 25, and 50 watts. And it's significantly larger.
Yeah.
So whoever's made this article just didn't...
Yeah, you're going to want a 50-watter if you're like when you're trying to busk on Market Street in Manchester or something.
Yeah, exactly. If you're just on a small street corner, the Boss one's really going to do fine. But if you need some serious oomph, then 50 watts is kind of...
At 50 watts, you'd better be heard around Piccadilly Gardens, wouldn't you, with that? I mean,
I would have thought so.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you better hear, oh, there's someone playing music over there.
Yeah. Really, really annoy people on the tube in London with a 50-watt one.
Oh, God.
You'd be heard 2 stations down.
In one of the containment circles that they put them in now. Have you seen those? Like there's actual proper busking places in the tube now.
Okay.
So they actually have like designated places that you can, I think you rent them out.
Right.
And it's basically like a painted semicircle on the ground. It's like, you must stay in this semicircle. It's allowed out.
I know that in Manchester you have to get a license and you have to kind of basically say, this is my spot. And you do have to do that. So you don't necessarily rent it on like a per day basis, but there is a similar thing. But yeah, it's I don't know. Pretty cool though. So yeah, fully featured. You can make lots of noise, and yeah, it's not very big either, which is good. Although there are obviously, from the sound of it, bigger versions. So moving on from good news to sad news. Shin-ei say bye-bye. So that was originally going to be the title for this week's podcast, but then the Electro Harmonix one was cooler, I thought. But Shin-ei have been making pedals for a very, very long time, including the classic Super Fuzz and the Univibe. These things, they go all the way back, I think, to the 60s, Shin-ei, and they've been selling pedals under different brand names as well. But yeah, Shin-ei's, they were largely unknown, I think, for a long time, apart from some of the most pedal geeks. But in the last few years, with people like the JHS show on YouTube, and basically just YouTube, and people really explaining the history of things like pedals, Shin-ei have had a bit of a resurgence because now people actually know who they were and who they are. But as typical as it is, they're a Texan brand. I always thought they were a Japanese brand, but I guess not. There you go. But yeah, they are closing. I'm guessing then that they've been hand making pedals. So yeah, they've made an announcement saying that they are closing. So it's kind of typical that they're known for some really good stuff, and just as they're getting recognition again, they've gone, nope, I'm kind of done. But, yeah, apparently, Bob Feldman from Shin-ei is not young in his years, and has basically just decided to retire rather than sell the company to some faceless corporation that just takes the name and does stuff with it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, the announcement was, we've gotten to that age where we want to spend more time playing guitar than building pedals for our friends to play guitar. And it's so on and so on and so on. So yeah, they've made a special Joe Bonamassa version of their Vibe Bro specifically for Joe Bonamassa, which is cool. And that's it. So yeah, expect prices on Shin-ei equipment to just go crazy. Because you can't get them anymore. So there you go. If you
Where would you put them in like a ranking of quality?
Oh, quality. They are way up there, definitely. Yeah, but I honestly don't know from probably the mid-70s to modern day, because they were kind of well known for some of their classic things like their Super Fuzz pedal and other stuff there in that kind of era, I think. And then I don't know much more about them until very recently. So, yeah, my knowledge of them is quite limited. But yeah, I don't know. They've just decided they've had enough. So there you go.
Fair play.
Now, from Shin-ei to a brand that we got a proper bashing for talking about a few weeks ago, SSL. Yeah, we talked about their controller, and a lot of people disliked that and gave us lots of comments in the YouTube comments. But we did get a lot more views that week, so ha. Yes, turmoil is good. But yes, SSL have in the past made a couple of really nice kind of middle-of-the-road channel strips and compressor plugins, EQ plugins. Now they've made Crazy Crunch. This is the Listen Mic Compressor, or the LCM Plus, which is a trick that was used a lot in the 80s. That big sound on stuff like In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins, that do-do-do-do-do-do-do. That's this. And so the history of that is basically that when SSL started making mixing desks, they put in an extra feature so that there was a massive compressor on the little microphone that went in the live room, so that you could talk to people at the other side of a really big live room and you could hear them. So it only turned that on when you press the buttons, so you didn't all go deaf. And then apparently when Peter Gabriel was in the studio before Phil Collins, and actually it was Phil Collins on drums, I think, one of the engineers pressed the button while Phil was still playing, and Peter Gabriel went, I like that. We're having that. Yeah. So they found out a way to get the sound of that and then route it into the console. I think that was Hugh Padgham, who is a very famous producer for using tricks like that. And so from there, a sound was born, and kind of an era came out of that. And so SSL have now gone, right, well, you know what? People are making plugins that sound like this. We're going to do it ourselves. And so, yeah, this is the ultimate crushing killer compression that does that big, pumpy, crushy thing. You want nice compression? This is not it. This is the kind of thing that makes you go, oh, that's nice. Oh, hello. So, yeah, if you want a big sound in your mixes, and I mean a truly disgusting, huge sound, that's one of these. Yeah. Lots of people like it. Oh, Marty's looking to fight people in the chat there. His opinions on the huge, complicated SSL mouse. Yes, quite.
Fight.
But yeah, right now this is on sale for $30 as well, so I might just go out and buy this.
And say, is that that's worth it?
Yeah, for that big sound, $30 I can justify because it will sound mahoosive. Like if you've got drums that don't pop in a mix, slap this on it, and there's also a wet dry here, so you can just blend in a bit of it, and that will suddenly make your drums just go like, I have lots of drums now. Of course, it's very possible to overdo something like that, but that's entirely on you, depending on the time, the style you're doing, and such. So yeah, I'm gonna go get that, and you should probably go get that too. I don't want a hardware controller for it though. So moving on, Misha Mansour from Periphery, famous for playing in Periphery and also for his Jackson Juggernaut, which is the kind of super sleek looking guitar that's got those kind of like racing car stripes, has a second series signature from Jackson called the SoCal, or the SoCal 2PT, and it looks like a classic Strat. And
It does.
I'm going to take a guess that a lot of the clean stuff that's on their albums is going to be tracked with something like this. Because Strats really have nice, clean tones. Mm-hmm. And I've seen some behind-the-scenes footage of these guys recording in their studio, in studios, including Misha's. He's got lots of money now. He's got sports cars. He's got quite a nice home studio. And whenever they do clean parts, they pick up something like a Strat and put it on a mode that sounds nice. And they just start playing and you go, oh, that's nice. And they don't have to do anything to it. It just is. And there's a lot to be said for a guitar that you play and you just go, oh, that's nice. So yeah, there you go. Although it is kind of a shredder model. It's got the typical Jackson appointments with like a humbucker in the bridge. Floating bridge, so it looks like it's a bit of a do-all guitar, so it'll do nice clean stuff up here, but then it'll shred. It's typical Stratocaster type thing. It's got a basswood body, 22 frets, and yeah, but it's got some nice little extras like the luminlay glow-in-the-dark dots, which sounds fancy, but if you've ever been on a stage and the lights go down, the fact that you can look down and see where your frets are means you don't suddenly panic. Because there's nothing worse if you're going from a complicated bit to a different complicated bit and the lights are off and you don't know how far up the fretboard you're going. You go, blah, it sounds disgusting. But if you can just look down and even out the corner of your eye, even as an experienced guitarist, sometimes you just have to glance out the corner of your eye just to make sure you get to the right point. You don't have to stare down like a 12-year-old and go, but sometimes that quick point of reference can save the day. It's got, I would say, a Fender-style headstock, but Jackson are now owned by Fender. So, so they are allowed to do that these days. Which, this really strikes me as interesting, that this is basically an American Pro Strat done by Fender that doesn't have Fender.
That is kind of weird.
I suppose it's kind of like a cross-licensing thing, though, because Misha already has a Jackson signature. It makes logical sense for him to have two Jackson signatures rather than be, brand confusing, I guess. Because people who don't know, like I know, that Jackson and Fender are the same company, will start asking odd questions about how has this guy got two signatures? Is one his current signature? Is one the old signature? Has he left one company for another?
Yeah.
Those are all the questions that muddy the waters when guitarists, like when they leave one company and go to another, it's always a bit of a turbulent time. And in this case, like I said, it would look like that, even though that's not the case. So I think they've just gone for the simple option. There's all the subtle little details. Like if you look closely, just below this pickup here, the volume knob is usually about an inch further up on a Stratocaster. because there's usually 3 controls here. So the volume's usually way closer, and if you play any kind of metal, you'll know that that's a massive pain in the backside, because as you're playing, your little finger catches it and just turns it down a bit, down a bit, down a bit, down a bit. And then you look down and you go, why is my guitar so quiet? Oh, stupid. So most players who do anything that's got much more aggressive stuff in it, we all get the volume pot moved. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, it's got a nice fingerboard. I mean, Aceman says, why you'd buy a Jackson with a Strat style body's beyond me. You'd do that because you're a Periphery fan. That's why you'd do it. You do it because you love Misha Mansour and you want to buy everything that he does. And that's okay. That's just a thing. That's what being a fan's all about. I mean, it's got some of the subtle super modern stuff. Like, it's not got a metal plate on the back here like Fenders usually do. It's got the more modern Jackson-y inlaid thing. Yeah, let's have a look. It's got things like, yeah, I know that some Fenders have the 2-point trem bridge here, but it's more common on Fenders to have the 6-point bridge there, which is a lot more locked down. So there's a lot of subtle little changes that do make this a Jackson. But also Fender have kind of modernized part of their range over the years, so that there is a big blurring of the lines here. But hey, if you want it, go get it. It's not cheap at €2,300, so what, nearly $3,000? Better be good for that price. But if it is, oh, nice. Oh, it comes preloaded with his signature bare knuckle Ragnarok in the bridge as well, which means that this is really a sleeper of a guitar, because that pickup will tear your face off. So yeah, there you go. I mean, I've got his less high output pickups in a Les Paul, the Juggernauts, and those are still pretty angry. But yeah. Oh, hello. Goodbye.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah, so last but not least, we've already had something. Oh no, it's time for a big Behringer corner. Let's start with...
Funny. Ash was trying to get Simba's bowl without being on camera, so she was like trying to crawl across the room. and she was doing quite well with it, and then Rogue started barking, and she was like, no.
Got some pretty good noise reduction there. We didn't hear any of it.
Good. Oh yeah, noise reduction, and I quickly muted. So.
Oh, fair enough.
That's funny. So what's a Behringer corner? Ooh,
firstly,
cool.
Yeah, that's a Roland 808 drum machine, except it's not. It's the Behringer RD8. Ooh. And apparently it looks very similar to the original. Ooh. Lots of different colours, lots of doofs and clicks and drum pattern. So if you want to make classic drum sounds with your hands, that is the Mark II version of the RD8. Yeah, so apparently it's the most authentic version of the 808 ever produced, but there's room for improvement, so they made a Mark II.
Wow.
And yeah, €349. That's really cheap for what that is. So there you go. If you really want an 808, you go get that. But the big Behringer corner news of the week is... Drum roll. This.
Ooh.
That is their System 55, which is a Moog copy of the old modular, the big old modulars. So yeah, that is pretty big. And the fact that it's completely modular means you can hook loads of these together and make proper big full modular systems. So apparently they've made three different things. They've made the System 15, which is a much more basic modular system. They've made the 35, which has a lot more packed into it. And the System 55 is this big, scary monster of a thing. And it's all Eurorack stuff. There's blank spaces in each one of these, so you can add your own specific modules, although the System 35 is fairly well packed out already. And I think this is actually a pretty good one, because I don't think Moog make their modulars anymore. and haven't done for a long time. So yeah, unless you really want to find something old school and secondhand and pay a flipping fortune for a classic Moog modular, because honestly, you will. I mean, a fully working Moog modular from the 60s or early 70s, you will pay more than a new car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're talking like synth kingdom, like synth nerdery. Yeah, that's like real status symbol stuff. And so even the Behringer equivalent is not cheap. So the System 15 is $1,600. The System 35 is $2,300. And the System 55 is $3,600.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's with the low-cost Behringer version. $3,600. But these things, I mean, if you are a synth nut and you want crazy, I mean, there you go. I know that there are people who make fully modular systems, like Dope Make systems, and you can pretty much brew your own from beginning now. That's a big thing in the modular synth niche. But if you want a kit that goes start to finish, has MIDI and USB in and out, but also has full racks for everything, including at least what I can see is an 8-channel sequencer, an 8-step sequencer. Yeah. That's a quite reasonable price for what this is. And compared to something like the RD8, which is... Although, even that, I mean, I don't think Roland are making an 808 right now, even though they make the TR8, so there is a bit of kind of crossover and room for Roland to complain. The Moog modular thing here, they don't make this. They just don't. They don't make anything close to this anymore and haven't done for a long time. So in this case, it's almost, not quite, but it's almost like kind of musical preservation, because you can get into synth stuff at a reasonable price, depending on what you call reasonable. I mean, if you want to dive in this deep into modular stuff, hey, some things just cost money.
Yeah, and I think it's obviously you can do synths on a computer, but
Yeah.
It's learning the fundamentals of how the sounds are made and why they're made. It's kind of a bit like you want to learn photography and you're picking up an old film camera and learning with that first.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a different view of photography than you are someone that uses their iPhone.
Yeah, massively. And this is very much kind of the king of exactly that. Every knob and every port that patches from somewhere to somewhere else is very instant feedback. You know when you screwed up because it goes whoa, whoa, whoa. It's like, nope, let's not do that. Yeah. So there you go. If you're a synth head, I mean, most synth nerds, I would imagine, are just going to be really upset about this for a while. And then they'll come round and they'll be like, you know what, for what it is. I mean, if you want to be like top tier, crazy, money's no limit synth, there is a world for that. There is an entire niche for that. You can get whatever you want. But that is probably going to cost you a large chunk of your life savings. Whereas this, I mean, like I say, it's not cheap. But when we talk about life savings, I mean, that's the kind of thing that I think you could save up for over a couple of years and actually, if you really, really believe, you know, it's attainable. And yeah, I mean, you walk into someone's studio and they've got something like this fully wired up and plugged in, you know they mean business with a synth. So there yeah, you don't look at that and you go, oh, nice toy. You go, whoa. So there you go, yeah. One of these and a couple of other vintage synths on the side, a couple of these on the shelf, and you walk in and you go, yeah, this guy means business. So there you go. Yeah, Marty says add 150 euros or whatever for good cables for making the spaghetti. I mean, you're not wrong. Because, yeah, these cables are going to be used a lot. But, oh boy. Also, if you want to learn how to use all this stuff, go and watch Look Mum No Computer on YouTube because he's mad. He actually makes his own modules. He makes all of these separate bits from scratch, and he's bonkers in the best possible way, but he does it for a living. He spends days with a soldering iron and components, and when it doesn't work, he goes back and spends more days, and that's for one unit. But that guy's so mad, he's made things like an organ entirely out of Furbies, an organ with several flamethrowers attached, stuff like that. So yeah, go and watch the Furby organ from Look Mum No Computer, and you'll see that this is just a gateway drug into true madness. So that was the news. The news. So yes, there's a lot happened this week. Does anyone have any questions for us in the chat? Now's a good time. Oh, I finally finished filming the video, by the way, for the Fishman Fluence pickups. Nearly couldn't say the word then. And yeah, that needs editing. But yeah, these things are great. They absolutely raw. That's the modern humbuckers, and these are probably the most rock radio ready pickups, I would say. They just, through a distorted amp, they just sound great. Yes. Oh, yes. Marty just mentioned something about a sale. That is the next thing to talk about. Is that I will open this link in another page. That's our other piece of news this week. I'll go back to this window. Pro Mix Academy, who we know and love, are having a summer insanity sale. It's basically Black Friday, but in July. And so our courses are on there, as are lots and lots and lots of stuff. So we've got things like the Ultimate Rock Mixing Bundle on here. Our link is in the chat and it's going to be on Discord and it's going to be everywhere. And so our Ultimate Reaper Mixing course, which was $97, is in this massive list. Also, Scott's course is in there too. The Guitar Mastery Mixing Extreme Metals in there. I think Understanding Audio Essentials from me is in there. So if you were going to buy my two courses, that would be, I think it was $177. For $197, so for $20 more, you get all of these from Grammy winners and Scott and me and Glenn Fricker and other Grammy winners and Scott and David Nozzi and Warren Hewitt and yeah, all that stuff. Or if you're crazy and you want the everything bundle, that's on there too. That's $500, but that is literally every course that Pro Mix Academy have ever made.
I think it's like $5,000, they say, if you were to buy it normally.
That's right. Now there are so many courses on there because since last year when they first did this, they've now got much more on there, including 2 courses from me, of course. 3 courses from Scott, I think it is. At least 2. Yeah, there's also... Yeah, there's a link to the Ultimate Guide to Reaper on there, which is down to $97 from $197 if you only want our guide to Reaper. That's on there at a reduced level. But yeah, there you go. If you want them, go get them.
Go get them.
Yeah,
Let's go get them.
That's our other thing, the Ultimate Reaper Guide, available now. It says at the top of the screen, and everything else is, yeah, if you want to get the rest of their courses at super cheap, do that. Get them the super cheap, because they are now the super cheap.
Indeed.
Yes. So many courses that just flicking through them makes the screen kind of go crazy. I mean, if you've ever wanted to mix symphonic folk metal, Glenn's got you covered. But that's in amongst everything else, you know. Punk rock's popular, alternative rock, modern rock, prog rock. There's probably one about butt rock in here as well. There's one about math rock. You know the term butt rock, don't you?
No.
Butt rock is all the stuff like Five Finger Death Punch and Nickelback and people like that from all the radio stations in America that say we play nothing but rock.
Right.
So, yeah, butt rock. Lol indeed. So there you go. That's our other announcement this week, is that it is Crazy Summer Sale Insanity. So yeah, if you want to get those courses, now is a good time because this is the equivalent of a Steam sale, and it happens.
Which is also on right now.
It is, and I've completely ignored it because if I don't, I'll have no money and lots of games that I can't play because I'm
Yeah,
busy.
I've got too many games.
Yeah,
I
I only just finished Cyberpunk.
really, you finished it.
Yeah, and I kind of liked it actually.
I don't know. I don't want to spoil it in case anyone hasn't played it, but because I'll ask you later which ending you got. So I played it through and finished it 3 or 4 times, I think, like
All
from
right.
a hard save point, because there's like there's loads of different endings.
I had heard that, but I wasn't looking for more than one ending, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, the first ending that I got, it was a cool story ending, but I then did something different and had about another hour of gameplay,
Hmm.
which I missed out on the first time because I made certain decisions. It's quite
Right.
interesting.
Ah. Yeah, I felt like the ending that I got very much tied into the actions that I'd done, so that was good.
Did you get to Did you go to? I won't say anything. I'll ask you afterwards.
I went to space.
Oh right, yeah. There's a well better ending than that.
I'm sure there is, but I went to space.
Yeah, no, in terms of gameplay, like, there's about an hour of gameplay missing.
Oh.
Like where you go and actually because you didn't confront them, so you don't get to do that.
Huh.
But there's a whole game bit of that, and there's loads of story involved with it and stuff.
Right.
So
But
I would
space.
recommend when you've got an hour spare one day to go and do the opposite decisions.
Okay. Huh.
Because yeah, there's some good gameplay on that bit.
Right.
Anyway,
Anyway,
any more questions?
what looks like quite a good one from Andre. It's long, but just distilling it down, he's noticed that there's an openness and air and better silence on tracks from the 70s and 80s, but tracks from 2000s miss that dynamics and air. His theory is the use of a recording desk, so same against different mic pre's and plugins. Any thoughts on that? I think that is definitely a thing, but I'm sure that is not the reason behind it. My thought on the matter is, well, there are a few, but from the late 70s through to up to 2010 maybe, there was a drastic shift in the way that records were made, full stop. The first one is that records got louder and louder and louder, and that was even in the analog and vinyl stages as they learned how to master vinyl better so it didn't jump. It was partly that in the early 80s we actually got what I call the mix revolution, which is that before that you recorded stuff, you put it on a tape, and then usually the engineer that recorded it got all the levels good, it sounded good, and that was it. You pressed it, you sent it, done. And then after that, it was guys like Bob Clearmountain who were then, it became a thing where you would send your tracks off to somebody else to make it sound ridiculously good by using every trick possible. And that was very much a change. Beyond that, when we get to almost exactly the year 2000, we've hit CDs, we've hit limiters, we've hit brick walls, and when we get to 2000, we also include Pro Tools. And not that in itself Pro Tools has a sound, but the engineers who were using Pro Tools in the early days were the tape-learned engineers. And so they tried to use Pro Tools in the same way, and it didn't translate right because they were used to getting a certain sound out of running through an analog desk into tape, and they didn't get that. And if they were using plugins in Pro Tools, they were very primitive at that time, and they would kind of destroy the audio because they weren't nearly as good as the analog gear at that time.
Yep.
I think since then, most of those engineers have retired, and the ones that haven't have very much got back on the horse and understood now what digital recording does that analog didn't, and really got to grips with handling it differently. And so now they respect it, give it that space, and also the loudness wars have kind of died down because of the Spotify and iTunes volume matching and the YouTube volume matching new revolution. So, yeah, we went through a period where everyone was fighting to be the loudest. So they would mix in a way that would try and cram everything as loud as possible, whereas before that it wasn't needed, so it wasn't aimed at. So, yeah, it wasn't I don't think to do with different preamps and using a recording desk. It was far more subtle and far more... It was to do with intentions, and intentions changed over the years, I think, because keeping up with the Joneses is very much the problem with the recording industry, and has been since the early 70s. Because you listen to what's considered the best sound, not by other engineers, but by the public at a certain time.
Yeah.
And either you go, I want to sound like that, or your record label phones you and says, you need it to sound like that. Because if it doesn't, you're not going to make the sales and you're not going to have a job. So, yeah. And I mean, it happens slowly. It happens in increments. Maybe the Beatles have a number one in 1969 with Let It Be, which is covered in, choirs and all the crazy stuff, and is quite loud and has no dynamics for its time. You get a phone call from your record label that says the next song you do has to sound like that.
Yeah.
And, the next month it's changing, the next month it's changing. So it's not as if there's ever been, I don't think, a real, like, today and tomorrow massive change, but bit by bit by bit by bit. The industry does almost move as a whole, because one pioneer per week or per month or per few months will make something a little different that gives them an edge, that gets them noticed, and then the crowd is then either willing or forced to follow that and make that the new paradigm. And I think that's how we ended up with things like in the late 80s with massive reverb on everything. It didn't start that way. It started that in the early 80s, there were some new cool like reverb units or delay units, and they'd be used a bit for an effect. And you'd go, that's cool. And then your record label would say, well, you should use that. And before you know it, everything is reverb. It's like In the Air Tonight by, Phil Collins is a great example. It's got that big da-da-da-da-da-da, but the rest of that song doesn't have that. It's not caked in it. It's so iconic it stands out, but if you listen to pretty much every single for the next 2 years, they're covered in it. And then you get to a point where it oversaturates, and then the record label call you and they're like, well, nobody likes that anymore, stop doing it. So it's slow. And then sometimes you will have little milestone moments, like Nirvana's Nevermind was a great milestone moment, because that was a little bit of a kind of a breaking of the wave. But that album was done entirely analog, just with big guitars, big drums, big bass, quadruple tracked vocals, which was very much an 80s thing, actually. But that, because it wasn't caked in massive reverb, didn't stand out as an 80s production method. It just kind of worked, and it sounded like grunge. If you know what you're listening for, it sounds heavily produced, but if you don't know what you're listening for, it sounds raw and real compared to everything that had come just before it. Like the hair metal of 1989 and 1990, if you compare that to Nirvana's Nevermind, suddenly it's raw and real and emotional. It's all about what's just come before you.
That's a really interesting point.
So yeah, if you ever look and say this era sounds like this, that era sounds like this, you might be right, but you've got to look in a bit more detail. It kind of goes like a wave and things subtly, slowly shift. And that's my perspective, having studied musicology. That, like, I got sat down by a university professor who was like, look, from 1960 to 2000, break it down. Over the space of a couple of years, you walk out of there going, my head. Because everything that you knew was wrong. Or at least is not the full story. That's the most
Yeah.
important thing I think that I've come to the conclusion of, is that anyone who says this killed this or that killed that, like Nirvana killed hair metal, not really. Like auto-tune killed pop, not really. You know, but little things do have parts of the story, but it's a much bigger story than any single point.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. There are little things like that. Like auto-tune came out in 97, 98. That was a thing. Nobody really used auto-tune for about 3 years after that.
Okay.
Then it became a thing and it became easy to access. And before you know it, every song's got a little bit of it. And then before you know it, taste has gone out the window and then every song is plastered in it.
Yeah.
And then there's a backlash. And if you listen to the radio now, I can tell that everything's been tuned, but it doesn't sound like a robot. Because there's been a backlash against that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. So exactly, Ace Man says that damn Cher song ruined music for years. No, it didn't at all. Because nobody, like I said, for 3 years after that, did auto-tune. Because if you did that, you sounded like Cher. And people took the mick out of you. Because it was so purposefully overdone that it was in effect. And so it took a little while, I think, for the public consciousness to kind of reel from that and for it to become normalized.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Video killed the radio star. Yes, quite. I mean, the internet killed a lot of stuff as well. That's a whole different argument, but that's just because suddenly you could access bands that weren't just on a major label or from your small local area. And even then, that rolled back as the MySpace era saturated and everyone was like, no more, please no more. You remember when your top 8 friends was a massive deal?
Oh God, yeah, it was. I completely forgotten about that.
Yeah, MySpace 1.0 and your top 8 friends. People would get really upset if you took them out of your top 8 friends.
Yeah. Wow. How did I forget about that part? Like, I remember all the banners and having music play when you land on the page and all this stuff. But yeah, your top 8 friends. That was such a big deal.
Yeah, it was a massive deal.
That's hilarious. Nostalgia.
Official YouTube moderator says auto-tune equals guitar distortion for the 21st century. I mean, that's a bold statement, but there's something in there.
He is the official YouTube moderator, so you can't argue with him.
Yeah, that's a pretty that's a pretty intense username that you got there. Don't know where you got that.
From his bosses at Google.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, my boss is Mr. Google.
John Google.
And Marty said Motown automation was 3 guys behind the desk operating the sliders in real time when bouncing to tape. It's like, I think Motown automation was not bounced from tape to tape. They were literally as they performed in the live room. It's like, quick. I know that there are stories of things like Bohemian Rhapsody the mixing was a performance in itself where there were 3 of them dancing around the mixing desk. But that's because having seen the tape from Bohemian Rhapsody, there were about 37 channels collapsed down into 24 tracks of tape. Because you can only get 24 things on a tape, on a 24-track tape. So they would have, like, the vocals in the intro are all laid across channels that later on in the song have got something else on. So at the end of that section, they turn off all the ones that aren't the main vocal and then unmute the channels that have got the same inputs on, but already mixed for, like, the big snare on the rock section or whatever. I don't know. So that's why they'd have these big, massive mixing desks in the 70s, even when the tape machine could only have 24 tracks. And that's something I only learned a few years ago is, so that track, and that track are all fed from track 17 on the tape. But at this point in the song, that's an R from Freddie Mercury. At that point, it's a guitar solo, and at that point, it's a snare drum. It's like, what? My brain.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then you get to the mid-80s when one track of the tape would have MIDI on it instead of audio. So that would then send out in real time to the keyboards and play the keyboards on other tracks that are going on the mixing desk. It's like,
All right.
What?
Wow.
Technically, it wouldn't be MIDI. It would be SMPTE timecode that would then feed a MIDI sequencer. But long story short, that's... Yeah. So, like, there was a Depeche Mode's album, Violator, which was a massive album in its time. They remixed it a few years ago and just, like, remastered it kind of thing. And they had to pull the original MIDI and get all the original synths and patch all the original synths in to get them to actually play the parts.
Oh, wow.
Like watching a puppet dance as they all play because they were never recorded to tape because there weren't enough tracks on the tape.
Wow.
But it didn't matter that there weren't enough tracks on the tape because whenever you press play, the keyboards would play themselves again. My brain. Yeah, it's incredible.
It's pretty cool, though.
So yeah, there you go. That was quite a long story for such a short question, but yes, I shall now get off my soapbox and go and curl up and cry for a while because, yeah, automation in DAWs these days is so much easier. And I'm very grateful for the fact that we have it because it means that I can press a button and all the faders move on their own. And if you want to learn how to do all that, you can grab the Ultimate Reaper Mixing course on the Pro Mix Academy sale, which is in the chat. Yeah.
Cool. Right, well, we need to get off and carry on speaking to companies to add more stuff to this giveaway, which
We do indeed.
we'll hopefully be able to announce in full next week, but if not, it will be very soon.
Yes.
So stay tuned for all the awesomeness.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Might see you tomorrow night for a mixing stream if I can get back here in time for that. Me and Liam are doing a filming job tomorrow, but hopefully I'm back in time. And then, if not, I'll see if I can do that on Saturday, maybe. Then we're back on Monday for the Mayseto Punk mixing stream. Then we've got another video coming out on Tuesday. So it's going to be a very busy, busy time. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Hey, everyone. That might be the end of the video, but if you fancy carrying on this conversation, we have a Discord server. Link is in the description. We're also on Patreon, which is something you can really help us with. We also are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Hot Hole Studios. See you there.